I supported my boyfriend for 12 years, yet he regretted not accepting the rich heiress's confession years ago. He even blamed me for my poor academic performance, claiming I was the reason he failed to get into Tsinghua University. To get revenge, he slashed my face with a utility knife and pierced my hands the hands I used for drawing. As I lay in the hospital, close to death, he refused to sign the surgery papers, sneering, "You deserve it." The moment my hatred for him peaked, he was hit by a car and died. We were both reborn. After rebirth, he immediately abandoned me and got together with the rich heiress who had once pursued him. He thought that in this new life, he would surely get into Tsinghua with a perfect career and love life. But he never expected the rich heiress was just toying with him. And Tsinghua University? I threw my acceptance letter right in his face. Sorry, but someone without ability who refuses to work hard won't get in, even if they're reborn 1,000 times. I'm allergic to stupidity. I can't be with someone who's not smart. The person who said that to me was 18-year-old Ethan. He glanced at the girl sitting by the window, then edged his seat away from me. Could you move a little further away? I don't want people to misunderstand our relationship. It's not public yet, so let's just pretend nothing ever happened. I looked at his blue and white uniform, a little startled, and asked again, "What did you just say?" "I didn't hear you clearly." A look of disgust flashed in Ethan's eyes and his brows furrowed. "Nina, I was only with you before because you were the school's beauty queen. But think about it, do the top-ranked student and the 1,000th ranked student make a suitable pair? I'm meant to get into Tsinghua after all." I lowered my head, my body trembling uncontrollably. It was true. We had both been reborn. Ethan and I both alive again. He had said this exact phrase countless times in my previous life. Because he didn't get into Tsinghua, he vented all his frustrations on me. If I hadn't dated you, I would have gotten into Tsinghua. If I hadn't wasted time tutoring you, I would have definitely graduated and gotten a job from Tsinghua. So, the first thing he did after rebirth was break up with me. Seeing my prolonged silence, he lost patience. "Stop being so dramatic, just stay away from me." Only when he left his seat did I slowly lift my head, my face calm, devoid of any sadness or grief. In my previous life, we were together for 8 years. I supported him for all those 8 years. He thought retaking exams was humiliating and refused to study. After getting into college, he drank and played games in his dorm every day, skipping classes and exams. By his second year, the university had expelled him. I had to study and work multiple part-time jobs, bearing the rent and living expenses for both of us. I once thought he would eventually pull himself together and live a meaningful life, but it only led to increasingly worse abuse. Even as I lost consciousness on the operating table, I prayed, if I could live my life again, I never want to be involved with Ethan again. Now, with my wish granted, I immediately sprang up and ran to the office. The teacher in charge of the art exam was preparing to submit course applications. I rushed over and held his arm. "Teacher, I want to join the art course too. This life, I wouldn't give up the art exam for Ethan anymore." I would work twice as hard, draw seriously, study properly, and soar to the peak that belonged solely to me. There were 3 months left until the college entrance exam. I finished my art preparatory course and returned to school. As soon as I entered the classroom, I saw Ethan sitting at the front desk. One hand was working on an assignment, the other held a book to shield the sleeping girl beside him from the sun. Occasionally, he'd turn to look at her with gentle, loving eyes. That girl was Chloe, the rich heiress who had appeared on TV in my previous life. She came from a good family and had excellent academic records. More importantly, she liked Ethan. In my previous life, when she confessed to Ethan, I stood right beside him. The lazy boy leaned against the desk, and right in front of her, he pulled my wrist and awkwardly said, "Sorry, I already have someone I like." That day, his fingertips were burning hot, flushing my cheeks and ears red. Later, when Ethan and I were cramped in a rented room, so poor we couldn't even afford a single meal, Chloe returned from studying abroad. Her and her boyfriend's wedding of the century even made it onto the news. That day, Ethan watched the bride, surrounded by thousands on the screen, chain-smoking an entire pack. As the last cigarette died out, he told me he regretted choosing me. My palm throbbed, as if still deeply pierced by the utility knife. As if sensing my gaze, Ethan looked up, saw me, and immediately frowned in disgust. I turned my face away, heading to my desk at the back of the classroom. My desk was messy, littered with test papers and scraps of trash. I barely nudged it before a cockroach crawled out. The girl in front screamed, leaping out of her seat and scrambling away. The entire class, dozing during nap time, woke up. Chloe, too. She stood up haughtily, angrily shouting at me, "Nina, you just came back and you're already causing trouble. Can you please be quiet?" I paid no attention, continuing to clean my desk. He walked up to me and kicked my desk. "Is your desk deaf? You art students might not care about studying, but we still have college entrance exams." He always looked down on art students, believing they had no future. In my previous life, he even advised me to give up the art exam, saying, "Your boyfriend is a top student. If you study properly, you'll easily get into a top-tier university." The tall, thin boy would raise his hand to point at his name at the top of the ranking board. He was always number 1 in his year, considered Tsinghua and Peking University material by the teachers, while I was just an average art student. I listened to him, gave up the art exam, and focused all my energy on cultural subjects. In the end, I only scored enough to get into a second-tier university, and he still called me stupid, claiming tutoring me was a waste of time. He even suggested I infected him with my dullness, causing him to miss Tsinghua. Now, after abandoning me, his fawning over Chloe didn't make him look any smarter. Losing my patience, I also kicked the table hard, the leg slamming straight into his leg. "Who's deaf now? Have I said a single word since I came into class? If you're sick, go see a doctor. Don't drag me into your bad luck." Ethan clutched his injured leg, staring at me in disbelief. "Stop arguing, don't disturb everyone's nap." Chloe walked up from behind, her voice husky from just waking up. She glanced at Ethan, her face a little flushed. "Nina, you're finally back. Everyone really missed you." The girl was radiant and pretty. Even in a loose school uniform, she couldn't hide her elegant demeanor. Who would have thought that she once dragged me into a corner and slapped me over a dozen times, just because I was ranked above her in the school beauty queen election? Now that she had finally stolen Ethan from me, she couldn't hide her pride. "You have no idea how stubborn Ethan is. He argued with me about one math problem for 2 whole classes. I don't understand why you would say such things to him. He's been out playing around for half a year. He's probably forgotten how to write math equations by now." Ethan glared at me contemptuously, but his voice became sweet and doting, like spun silk. I watched them hold hands tightly. On the blackboard behind them was a huge heart, with Ethan plus Chloe, Tsinghua couple, scrawled inside. In my previous life, Ethan and I never even held hands, not even until graduation. We promised not to disturb each other before the exams, to study hard, and then openly be together after they were over. Occasionally, I couldn't help but want to talk to him, so I would draw a portrait of him. My desk drawer was filled with Ethan's. Ethan frowning, Ethan with a sly smile, Ethan looking lost. Every stroke back then was filled with affection. I always found them perfect. Now the illusion was shattered. I realized he was just an ordinary man. While cleaning my desk, I threw all those sketches into the trash. Unexpectedly, Chloe picked them up that evening. She praised my drawing and wanted me to help draw the bulletin board. "Everyone's busy studying. Since you're done with your exam anyway, why don't you help the class a little?" Her voice was whiny and pleading, but her eyes were full of hostility. I lowered my head, working on problems. "I'm not free. The art exam already took away my study time. I need to double my efforts to catch up." Chloe stood there without a word. I slowly looked up and saw her eyes were red-rimmed, her face wet with tears. Ethan, hearing the commotion, rushed over, angrily scolding me. "It's just a bulletin board. What's so hard about it? Nina, do you have any team spirit at all?" He pulled Chloe behind him, sympathetically wiping away her tears. Chloe cried like a pear blossom in the rain, showing the sketches to Ethan. "I just thought Nina drew you so beautifully. I didn't know she was so busy." Ethan looked at the drawings, his face immediately darkening. Right in front of Chloe, he tore each page. "Nina, you truly disgust me." My gaze fell on the scattered fragments on the ground, a pang of sorrow in my heart. In my previous life, after the college entrance exam, Ethan had seen those sketches. Back then, his eyes were both dark and bright. He hugged them tightly like treasures, even planning to cover his bedroom walls with them. But now, he only saw disgust. During break time, the homeroom teacher came to me again about the bulletin board. This time, it was for a city-level competition to be used as publicity for the college entrance exam. First prize came with a 200 yuan reward. Initially, I intended to refuse, but as soon as I heard that, I nodded in agreement. "Nina, didn't you say you were busy?" Chloe saw me drawing on the board and rushed over, seeking attention. Isn't it because you heard there's a reward? Ethan followed closely. Now it's bulletin boards. After graduation, it'll be street art to make a living, surviving on this cheap profession. He had no idea that those cheap meals in the past were earned by me to support him. At my poorest, I earned just over 100 yuan a month. After paying rent and utilities, I didn't even know where my next meal would come from. Yet, he still forced me to give him money for cigarettes, alcohol, games, and character skins. My only option was to draw on the sidewalks for money, constantly chased by city management. But the results weren't as bad as he claimed. My art was very popular. Later, I secretly created a self-media channel and became a renowned art blogger. Ethan never knew any of this. He never cared whether I lived or died. I ignored them, drawing while memorizing English vocabulary. The two of them went back to their seats. It was clearly after school, but they weren't in a hurry to go home. They would quiz each other on English essays, then discuss math problems. If Ethan mispronounced a word, Chloe would tease him, "You're such a dummy." If Ethan solved a math problem correctly, she would praise him, "You're so smart. I must be stupid for not being able to do it like you." Ethan just kept smiling, his eyes gentle and adoring. "My precious is the smartest." Occasionally, they would both fall silent, then a moment later, a loud, "No," would echo. Even with my back to them, I felt nauseous. An hour of their showboating wasn't worth a moment of my actual studying. Looking at the heart drawn in the corner of the blackboard, I began to wonder, is Ethan's current state more likely to get him into Tsinghua than in his previous life? I didn't know. All I knew was that the next day, when the mock exam scores were announced, he was no longer at the top. Since his rebirth, he hadn't achieved first place once. This time, he even dropped to 20th. Chloe's performance had also noticeably declined. But they didn't care, reassuring each other that they would definitely be at the top next time. As for me, the homeroom teacher stood before the class, praising my remarkable progress. Some went for half a year of art training and came back having improved by over 200 ranks. Some students are at school all day and still drop ranks. They should really reflect on themselves. The teacher spoke with hidden meaning, as if deliberately targeting Ethan. I buried myself in reviewing my mistakes in each subject, thinking about what I needed to do to further raise my scores. Despite significant progress, my scores were still far from the standard for a top-tier university. Only by surpassing that standard, combined with my art scores, could I hope to get into a good school. After school, the homeroom teacher came to encourage me again and incidentally asked about the progress of the bulletin board. "Tomorrow is the deadline. I plan to finish it tonight." After everyone left, Chloe came to congratulate me on my progress. "Ever since you broke up with Ethan, your grades have skyrocketed, while his have plummeted." She put her hands on her hips, feigning anger, pointing at Ethan's chest. "Do you still remember her in your heart?" "How could I?" Ethan immediately retorted, eager to prove that I wasn't in his heart at all. "Progressing so fast, who knows if you cheated?" He had never seen me drawing until 3 a.m. on cold winter nights, splashing cold water on my face to continue memorizing new vocabulary. He also didn't know I studied classical Chinese while having a high fever on an IV drip, unable to eat for days. Yet, a single accusation of cheating wiped away all my efforts. In my previous life, when my progress was constant, Chloe also subtly led others to suspect me of cheating. Back then, Ethan firmly stood by me, blocking the crowd who wanted to strip me for inspection. He seemed as upright as a pine tree, but looking back, he probably believed I cheated too. The piece of chalk in my hand broke in half. I replaced it with a new one, carefully outlining the words "college entrance exam" on the blackboard, stroke by stroke. Chloe burst out laughing beside me. "It was just a joke. Why are you so tense?" Ethan sighed in relief, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Honey, don't tease me anymore. Scores don't matter now as long as I get into Tsinghua. I can pick any job and make millions of yuan a year. Then I'll buy a villa in Beijing and propose to you." Standing there, listening, I wanted to burst out laughing. Luckily, Ethan still didn't know I had also been reborn. Someone who once couldn't even scrounge up 10 yuan and had to ask me for money, how could I believe he'd get rich? Chloe excitedly glanced at me, then pulled Ethan's arm, whining, "Then let's have Nina do our interior design. She draws bulletin boards so well, she must be good at design too. Does she even deserve to design for us?" Ethan patted Chloe reassuringly and walked away, promising to hire a top-tier interior designer for her instead. He had said these very words to me once. After my parents each remarried, I no longer had a home. At that time, he held me tight and swore he would buy me a huge villa. Now he was making that same promise to Chloe. But he forgot that Chloe wasn't a small, unloved vegetable like me. She was a precious gem in her family's hands with vast wealth. Why would she be desperate for a villa? As I drew, I recalled accidentally overhearing Chloe and her friend talking in the restroom. At that moment, she had just been rejected after confessing her feelings, but she wasn't sad at all. She just furiously cursed Ethan and me, calling us a pair of playful idiots. They actually thought they were worthy of me. Besides that idiot Nina, who would like a poor loser like him, even if he gets into Tsinghua. If I get the chance, I'll definitely make sure he can't pass the college entrance exam. Let's see how arrogant he can be then. I had never told Ethan these words. Before, I felt it wasn't necessary. Now, I had even less desire to meddle. He chose his own path, so let him bear the consequences himself. 2 days after the bulletin board competition concluded, the homeroom teacher announced I had won first prize. Additionally, there was another extremely exciting piece of news. The outstanding graduate, Daniel, would be visiting our class tomorrow for a promotional film shoot. Using the bulletin board as a backdrop, the usually dull classroom suddenly erupted in cheers. Daniel's name was legendary at First High School. 3 years ago, he scored 725 on the college entrance exam, becoming the provincial top scorer. He was also a professional gaming master, having competed and had his own team. Later, even before graduating from university, he founded his own game development company. Many students at school regarded him as an idol and a goal, including Ethan and Chloe. In the past, Ethan had told me more than once that he would definitely surpass Daniel and become even better. As for Chloe, she immediately pulled out a photo of herself with Daniel from her dictionary to show off. It was taken last year when I attended a technology conference with my dad. Daniel is even more handsome in real life than in the picture. Her eyes filled with pride, she promised to help everyone get his autograph. I wasn't interested. I lowered my head to solve a geometry problem. But Chloe still pushed her way in front of me, asking me to help get autographs for the whole class. Because the teacher said the one who drew the bulletin board will have a special scene with Daniel. Nina is the luckiest one. She gets to be with Daniel for so long. Please help us get autographs. Chloe smiled brightly, but every word was laced with hidden meaning. If I didn't help, it would be like going against the whole class, but I just wanted to study. I had just told the homeroom teacher I didn't want to film, but she pleaded for just a few minutes, so I tried to bear it. From the last time I saw your drawing, I knew you'd definitely win first prize. Chloe didn't wait for my agreement. She placed a stack of Daniel's posters on my desk. Also, I noticed your drawing style is very similar to a master artist I follow. My hand froze, a slight tremor ran through me. During my art training, I used my experience from my previous life to create a self-media account, attracting 5 million followers in just half a year. Chloe was one of them. She had some knowledge of art and could easily recognize distinctive drawing techniques. I was still searching for an excuse to get away. She pulled out her phone and showed off her and Ethan's couple avatar. Look, the master artist drew this for us. So, all of this was just to show off how much Ethan loved her. I sighed in relief, my gaze stopping at the magnified phone screen. A bright, smiling girl in a uniform sat in the lap of a teenager in a white shirt, his eyes full of affection, with 2 clear red hickeys on his neck. Yes, that was the drawing I had created from a photo she sent, every line and stroke meticulously rendered by me. I really love this drawing. I had to beg the master artist for ages to get it. Isn't it beautiful? Chloe's eyes were full of arrogance. When she looked towards the classroom door, she paused for a moment, then unexpectedly grabbed my hand. Nina, why don't you draw one for us too? I can pay you. Does she deserve it? Ethan was coming in from outside with water, dutifully opening the bottle for Chloe. You are truly a master artist, someone Ethan will never be able to reach in this lifetime. I had just finished a geometry problem, sighed, and then casually threw the stack of posters into the trash behind me. That's right, you don't deserve it. The next morning, I arrived in class to find the bulletin board completely erased. The blackboard was so spotless it reflected, mirroring the amused faces of Chloe and Ethan. Last night, after I gave them a piece of my mind, they had left looking displeased. I didn't expect them to come up with such a childish prank overnight. The filming is this afternoon. Who on earth did this? the homeroom teacher paced anxiously, asking me what to do. I calmly replied, "Check the sleeves and hair of every student in class and you'll know." Chloe smiled haughtily, reflexively glancing at her own sleeves. The classroom only had cameras on during exams. She thought she was safe if she wasn't being filmed. But she didn't know that chalk dust, when wiping the board, would cling to sleeves and hair and couldn't be completely washed away by just rinsing hands. Seeing the homeroom teacher start checking from the first row, Ethan frantically crumpled his sleeves, a panicked look flashing in his eyes. He suddenly sprang up, advising me not to be so selfish. "Right now, you should be thinking about how to salvage the bulletin board, not spending all day trying to find the culprit. Nina, this isn't the time to be stubborn. Can you please prioritize the collective good?" Chloe, standing nearby, also chimed in, pretending to teach me etiquette. As for me, I just looked towards the homeroom teacher, who had stopped and resolutely said, "Unless the person who did this is found, I will not redraw it again." 5 minutes later, the homeroom teacher led Ethan out of the classroom, shouting loudly in the hallway, "How could you do such a thing? I am truly so disappointed in you." The classroom was silent for a few seconds before whispers began to spread. Chloe calmly sat at her desk, not offering a single word in Ethan's defense. Ultimately, Ethan not only had to apologize to me in front of the entire class, but also had to write a 5,000-character self-reflection essay. This was probably the first self-reflection essay in the life of this favored child of heaven. I watched him, looking resentful, finally having to bow his head before me. A wave of immense satisfaction surged through my heart. At lunchtime, I invited 2 classmates from the next class to share a KFC meal. They were friends I had met during art training, and their professional skills were excellent. Moreover, I had a habit of taking photos of every completed artwork, so the 3 of us compared it with the original, and in just 2 hours, we finished the bulletin board again, making it even more beautiful and refined than the previous version. Not long after we finished drawing, Daniel and the film crew arrived at the school's main auditorium. Before the shoot, there was a seminar introducing Tsinghua University. Daniel briefly introduced the university and himself, followed by a Q&A session, creating a lively atmosphere. Even if they couldn't get in, they still wanted to say a few words to the senior. Ethan raised his hand several times but couldn't get the microphone. As the Q&A session concluded, Daniel was about to leave. He suddenly stood on his chair and loudly called Daniel's name. The name echoed throughout the auditorium. Everyone turned to look. Ethan's face was flushed with excitement. In front of the entire school, he asked, "If I get into Tsinghua and want to make a game, can I invite you to beta test it then?" Daniel smiled and nodded slightly. After the dismissal, he walked towards my classroom. Chloe, clutching a poster, eagerly waited, unable to hide the excitement on her face, but Daniel walked past her as if they were strangers. He walked straight to the back of the classroom. Ethan immediately jumped off his chair, his eyes full of arrogance, waving from afar, but Daniel didn't even spare him a glance. I was sitting at the back of the classroom, writing down vocabulary. Looking up, I saw Daniel stop in front of me. He gently patted my head, smiling brightly. "Good luck with the college entrance exam. Remember to draw me a new avatar after you're done." The smiles on Chloe's and Ethan's faces instantly froze. My acquaintance with Daniel was actually due to a fortunate coincidence. During the initial training period, when my account wasn't famous yet, I was short on money, so I often entered drawing competitions to win prizes. At that time, Daniel's company was recruiting character designs for a new game. I stayed up for several nights working on my submission and ultimately won first prize of 10,000 yuan. From then on, I got to know Daniel and even did a few free design sketches for him. I didn't know he would act like this today. Yesterday, when Chloe showed off her avatar, she also mentioned that Daniel's avatar was drawn by the master artist. I never expected to reveal my identity in such a way. After the filming, returning to class, I was immediately surrounded by classmates. Everyone asked me to draw avatars for them after the exam. My gaze swept past the crowd to the front row. Ethan and Chloe sat together, the seats beside them conspicuously empty. As class time approached and people gradually dispersed, Chloe suddenly ran up to me. "Nina, you and the senior are just joking, right? How could you be the master artist? Impersonating someone else is wrong." She tried to maintain a gentle and friendly demeanor, but her eyes couldn't hide her astonishment and suspicion. I've already told the master artist about this. If you admit it was just a joke now, it's not too late. The master artist is very kind, they won't be angry. She held up her phone. On the screen was a message sent to my account, filled with fabrications, accusing me of impersonation, and demanding that the master artist personally clarify the situation. I didn't have my phone, so I had no way to prove my identity. The eyes of my classmates around me gradually changed. Chloe's deceptive face easily won others' trust. Just as she thought she had cornered me, I gave a faint smile and slowly recited 2 messages she had once sent me. On the 15th, "Oh, master artist, I really like you. Can I trade my boyfriend's college entrance exam scores for 2 avatars?" On the 5th, "Oh, master artist, I'm so happy today because my boyfriend is finally no longer at the top. Dating is so much more fun than studying, haha." Chloe liked to use private messages to me as a place to vent, full of complaints. At school, she acted like a good student, but only in the virtual world did she dare to show her arrogant and unruly true nature. No one else knew about those messages. I only needed to read 2 of them to make her break out in a cold sweat. Enough! Sure enough, before I could even utter the 3rd message, Chloe collapsed. The classroom fell silent. She glanced at Ethan, then turned and fled from the classroom. All eyes turned to Ethan. For the first time, he didn't chase after her, but instead looked at me with deep thought. "You've been reborn too." During lunch break, he pulled me into an empty classroom, his eyes sharp as if trying to pierce my soul. In my previous life, high school Nina had no such drawing skills. Knowing I was the master artist, he must have figured everything out. I didn't answer. I only smelled the strong stench of cigarettes on him, no different from his fallen image in the previous life. In my memory, teenage Ethan never smoked. He was always clean and tidy, his uniform always carrying the pleasant scent of camellia soap. It was a pity that I didn't know when this boy began to rot and stink. Ethan saw my silence, his eyes turning cold. He grabbed my wrist, gritting his teeth as he demanded, "Why didn't you die in the hospital? Why are you haunting me like a ghost, never letting go?" He used all his strength, as if trying to break my arm. My palm throbbed again, the pain piercing my heart, making it hard to breathe. I didn't know whether the physical or emotional pain was worse. I used my other hand to violently shake his off, growling, "I already died." The Nina of the previous life died on that cold operating table simply because no one signed the surgery papers. Ethan was pushed back. He looked up at me, stunned for a few seconds, then took a deep breath, his voice becoming calm again. "Nina, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have treated you that way before." There wasn't an ounce of remorse on his face. He merely stated that he wanted us to have nothing to do with each other anymore, to live in peace. "As long as I get into Tsinghua, Chloe will introduce me to her parents. Do you know how rich her family is? I could save myself decades of hard work." His eyes were filled with ambition and eagerness as he enthusiastically described his future. "After university, Chloe and I will study abroad, then get married and take over the Sioux Corporation. After half a lifetime, I'll return at the peak of 3 generations. Finishing, he turned to look at me, only helplessness remaining in his expression. "That's the life I deserve, not living in a dilapidated rental with you. Do you understand?" Nina gave a cold, faint smile. "Then I wish you success." I hadn't finished reading the messages Chloe sent me earlier. There was a new one from a few days ago. "Master artist, my dad plans to send me abroad to study after the college entrance exam, and my boyfriend thinks he's going to meet my parents. It's so funny. I've been tired of him for a long time. I'll dump him in a few days." Chloe disappeared for 1 class period, then returned to her seat. She hugged Ethan's arm, whining an apology, but Ethan didn't budge, feigning calmness as usual. A few days later, when the second mock exam scores were announced, he regained his top position in the entire grade. He hugged Chloe in front of the scoreboard, loudly declaring, "I want both the top rank and you, my darling." I stood behind them, noting that my score had just reached the threshold for a top-tier university. On the very same day, the college entrance exam promotional poster featuring me and Daniel was plastered all along the 12th grade hallway. In the photo, the young girl had lightly flushed cheeks, radiant and pure like a wild daisy. Even I hadn't expected to look like that, and couldn't help but stand there gazing at it for a long time. A few days later, this poster, along with my scores from 2 exams and the information that I was an art blogger, began to spread wildly on QQ. I transformed from a pretty face with poor grades into an academic beauty queen with the potential to get into Tsinghua Academy of Fine Arts. I didn't care. I just wanted to make the most of the last month to push through. But some people cared very much. That night, someone secretly turned all my posters into caricatures. Chloe blocked me in the hallway where I usually studied. Her two girlfriends held my arms tightly while she held a utility knife. If I accidentally drew a line across your face, would anyone still think you're beautiful? The blade lightly grazed my cheek. I had deliberately chosen a quiet, empty hallway to avoid distractions while studying. Even if she truly attacked, no one would come to my rescue. In my mind, the scene from my previous life flashed, my face being slashed by Ethan, the numbing, despairing pain. I unconsciously clenched my fists, feigning composure. If you dare to lay a hand on me, I'll make all your private messages public. Chloe froze, put the knife down, but still slapped me once. You dare threaten me? Do you think I'm scared of you? She said that, but she didn't dare pick up the knife again because once those messages were exposed, the perfect image she had painstakingly built would completely collapse. She slapped me twice more, then sneered and grabbed my hair. I'm not stupid enough to do it myself. You got dumped by me and then tried to study hard, wasn't it all to get his attention? You love him so much, so if I let him destroy you with his own hands, you'd probably be very happy, wouldn't you? As soon as she finished speaking, Ethan came up the stairs, stopped dead at the sight before him, his gaze falling on Chloe. What's wrong, honey? Chloe immediately changed her tone, sweetly whimpering, Darling, maybe we should break up, I don't deserve you. Who said that? Ethan's face turned cold, his voice flat like ice. Chloe glanced at me, pouting. Everyone says Nina is prettier than me, and that you and she are a match made in heaven. No one thinks I'm as beautiful as she is. Ethan held her close, comforting her without letting go. Finally, Chloe gave a triumphant smile, conveniently slipping the utility knife into Ethan's hand. Then prove it to me. Just one slash across her face, and I'll believe what you say is true. Otherwise, we break up. Hearing this, the last glimmer of affection in Ethan's eyes vanished. He held the utility knife close to my face, his hand not trembling in the slightest. As if I was truly afraid at last, tears streamed down my face like rain. I shook my head, begging, please, don't. The more I pleaded, the more excited they became. The entire space held its breath, all eyes fixed on the blade, waiting for blood to spill from my face. But the moment the blade touched my skin, a scream erupted from Ethan's mouth. Ah! He suddenly lost all strength, threw the knife to the ground, and doubled over, clutching his lower body in agony. Chloe and her two girlfriends hadn't even reacted yet. I had already withdrawn my leg from my full-force kick. Breaking free from their gripping hands, I picked up the knife. Without even wiping my tears, I acted decisively. Ethan was in so much pain he couldn't stand, stumbling as he tried to get up. I kicked his calf again, making him lose his balance and tumble down the stairs. The two girls screamed and fled. I grabbed Chloe, who was about to run after them. She was so terrified she went limp, collapsing to the ground, her face ghostly white, her entire body stiff. Mimicking her earlier posture, I gently grazed her cheek with the utility knife, then pulled down her bangs and sliced off a chunk right in front of her, letting the strands fall to the ground. A utility knife isn't used like that. Chloe's eyes went wide, then she fainted on the spot. In my ears, only Ethan's painful groans and cries for help remained. I casually walked down the stairs, went to him, and looked down from above at him curled up on the ground, sweat pouring from his forehead, muttering, Call the police. I'm annoyed. I directly stepped on his mouth, then took a voice recorder from my pocket. I have full evidence of you bullying me. What do you have? He only knew how to bully small, unloved cabbages like me, but he didn't know that when a cabbage has no family ties, once it goes crazy, it doesn't even care about its own life. That evening, 2 ambulances arrived at the school. From then until the college entrance exam, Ethan and Chloe no longer appeared at school. Chloe suffered severe shock, had a fever for several days, and refused to return to school. Ethan broke his right hand, had to wear a cast, couldn't move it at all, and wouldn't recover before the exam. They both adamantly claimed it was just a lover's quarrel, with no outside interference. Ethan's mother came to the school several times, causing a scene, demanding explanations from the homeroom teacher and principal. My son is a top student, preparing for Tsinghua, and suddenly he's injured and can't take the exam? You people must be responsible. From a distance, I saw her lying sprawled in front of the school gate, throwing a tantrum, her face filled with viciousness and malice. In my previous life, she also caused trouble, but it was at the gate of my university. She once hit me in front of many people, cursing me as a jinx and a vixen who prevented her son from getting into Tsinghua. Even later, when Ethan and I were together, she never looked at me with normal eyes. This time, Ethan couldn't even participate in the college entrance exam. Who could she blame now? It certainly wasn't me anymore. When the bell rang, signaling the end of the final college entrance exam, amidst the joyous cheers of, "We're done," I sat in the empty classroom, looking out the window, and let out a long sigh. The evening glow was vibrant like fire, painting the sky. I had a feeling that in this life, far away from Ethan, I would live a truly good life, a very, very good life. Returning to my small rented apartment, I turned off my phone and slept for a full day and night. Before the college entrance exam results came out, I hardly left the house, simply drawing, reading, cooking, and quietly unwinding. There was no game noise, no unpleasant smell of cigarettes or alcohol, no vulgar insults, and no sudden destructive outbursts. There was only me, quiet, and content. I met Ethan and Chloe again a month later. They arrived hand in hand at the class reunion. Ethan's hand had just been out of the cast. Even though he couldn't take the college exam, he wasn't as resentful as he was in the previous life. I heard Chloe had already introduced him to her parents. Chloe's father even promised to sponsor them both to study abroad. "Chloe and I are going to London next month. Let's keep in touch later." Ethan, full of bravado, shook hands with every classmate until he got close to me. He unconsciously took a step back, then gave a forced cough and a faint smile. "Tsinghua Academy of Fine Arts, congratulations. Indeed, people like you are only suited for shortcuts." I took a sip of water, calmly replying, "Yeah, unlike you, who just jumped straight into someone else's house, right?" He immediately crumpled, his eyes glaring at me maliciously. "You think the past is over. Just wait until Chloe and I come back from studying abroad, I'll settle the score with you." Chloe, who hadn't been paying attention, suddenly looked up, glanced at him, then lowered her head again without a word. He didn't notice this, still clinging to me and threatening. "Even if I didn't take the college exam, after studying abroad, Chloe and I will still be society's elite. As for someone like you, with no money and no power, you wouldn't even be fit to work for us." He kept saying "we" and "us," as if they had already changed their surname to Sue. I just wondered if the Sue family would even accept him. After the reunion ended, I declined the invitation for an after-party. The sunset was beautiful, and I decided to find a public bicycle to go home. As soon as I scanned the QR code, I heard sounds of a brawl coming from the alley behind the restaurant, along with a familiar, miserable cry. It sounded just like Ethan, the one who once pushed me down the stairs. I thought for a moment, then quietly approached, hiding in a corner to observe. I saw Ethan, who had just been laughing and chatting at the dinner table, now with a bruised and battered face, surrounded by several burly men being mercilessly beat. Chloe, who had left with him, was nowhere to be seen. A toad trying to eat swan meat? How dare a poor wretch like you touch the Sue family's young miss? If you don't have a mirror, at least find some urine to see your reflection. Look carefully at your pathetic self and see if you're worthy. I coldly watched Ethan being humiliated and beat. I watched them pin one of his legs down, another man repeatedly smashing a brick onto his knee. Someone else covered his mouth, preventing any sound from escaping. I only saw him with wide, bloodshot eyes, convulsing in pain, blood gushing out, a vivid crimson, even redder than the strangely beautiful sunset on the horizon. The light in his eyes slowly faded, turning into a dead pool of water. I turned and left. It's true I'm not inherently smart, but I know my own capabilities. The path I took was built on sleeping 2 hours less than others, memorizing one more vocabulary word, knowing humility, and showing perseverance. After that day, an anonymous person posted a video on the school forum. In the video, Ethan, covered in blood, lay sprawled in front of the Sue family mansion, screaming Chloe's name like a madman. "Chloe, what did I do wrong? Tell me, I'll fix it. Please don't leave me, I beg you." He screamed for a long time, but no one from the Sue household came out, not even a passing dog bothered to glance at him. Finally, the police arrived and carried him away. Afterward, I was busy with my studies and heard little news of them. I only knew Chloe went abroad alone, and Ethan didn't go back to school. As for me, I enjoyed my brilliant university years alone. I studied diligently, earned scholarships, and made friends with many talented and humble people. For years later, I graduated smoothly and started working as an illustrator at Daniel's company, while also being a part-time webtoon blogger. Everyone shared about their university lives. When it was my turn, a waiter happened to bring out a dish. Through the gap in the door, I saw a familiar figure. He limped, avoiding the food cart, looking pathetic. "Oh, what a mess," I quietly smiled. "Tsinghua? Well, that's good too." After a few rounds of drinks, I went to the restroom and was unexpectedly blocked by Ethan in a secluded corner. He had a scraggly beard, and his face was gaunt and tired. He looked exactly like he did in my previous life when he begged me not to leave, giving me goosebumps. "Don't call me that, it's disgusting." His eyes were complex, filled with both pain and regret. "I know I was wrong, can you give me another chance?" "No," I said coldly. I turned to leave but was held back. He took out a plastic bag. "Here's your favorite sandwich." I looked at the bag of sandwiches for a long time but didn't take it. In truth, I had never liked that food. It was just that during my 12 years with Ethan, I couldn't afford anything else. Even the sandwich was the cheapest kind, with no extras. When he was with me, he always spoke of regret. Now he's feigning such devotion. I continued, not letting him interrupt. "I regret it too. Do you know how despairingly painful it was when my face was slashed, cut by cut? Do you know how much it hurt when my palms were pierced? You're already limping and you still can't be content? Do you want me to do everything you did to me for you to be satisfied?" He was silent. The more I spoke, the darker his face became. By the time I left, he was like a gray, lifeless corpse. Before I entered the room, I heard him call out, "Nina, I'm sorry." That voice echoed through the long hallway, through time, resonating from a distant past, but I didn't need it anymore. After that, Ethan truly disappeared. It wasn't until I was 26, the same age I had died in my previous life. That year, I had my own small apartment and a kitten. One ordinary afternoon, someone in the class group suddenly said, "Ethan stabbed Chloe multiple times. She's still in the ICU." He went into hiding. When the police found him, he had committed suicide in his rented room, dying a miserable death. His face was slashed beyond recognition, both his hands were pierced, and he ultimately bled to death. At the time, I was rushing to meet a deadline, so I didn't pay much attention, hearing it merely as gossip. A year later, I had to go to court for a copyright lawsuit. I saw Ethan's mother holding a sign, crying hysterically at the gate. "My son died unjustly. He was a student preparing for Tsinghua." She kept repeating this, alternating between crying and laughing. As I walked past, she even handed me a flyer. She didn't recognize me. I got into my car and pulled out my phone to look up old news. The article read, "Ethan snuck into Chloe's wedding and stabbed her 7 times. Chloe's wedding photo showed her wearing the exact dress that had appeared on TV in my previous life. Only this time, the news viewer had become the main character. The article also mentioned that Ethan's rented room was decorated very warmly. The slippers and table mats were all in pairs, but police investigators found no evidence of any woman ever living there. I looked at the slippers in the photo for a long time, suddenly remembering they were the same style I used to buy at the night market. Finally, the article also stated that beside Ethan's body was a set of college entrance exam papers, the very ones he had missed years ago. He had completed them all, scoring exactly 700 points, enough to get into Tsinghua. It was a pity the exam papers had expired, and life wouldn't give him another chance to retake the full exam. The end.